This is the Business Culture of Agriculture. My name is Andy Junkin, and with me tonight is Amanda Steenwyk. She's from Iowa Farm Bureau, and she's out of West Des Moines, Iowa. How are you tonight, Amanda?
I am good. Very good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate being on the show. And Farm Bureau has been there's two sides to Farm Bureau. Could you explain the different divisions between the Farm Bureau Federation and Farm Bureau, I guess, insurance?
Sure. Yep. I work for Iowa Farm Bureau Federation. It's our nonprofit side. We have offices in the counties, but those are the Federation side is the side that really reaches. We do a lot of member benefit type things, and the programs that I manage are those member benefits and then we have Farm Bureau Insurance and Investment side, which I do not work for that side, but if we do have that side of our business as well.
And you have an agriculture background yourself. You're from a family farm. You went to Iowa State University, and you also have worked in the banking sector before you took this job with Farm Bureau. Is that correct?
Yep. The majority of my experience is I was an ag and commercial lender right out of college for several years in a small town, southeast Iowa. So.
Okay. And now you manage the Take Root program, and I had you on the show initially just to talk about the Take Root program, but you're doing a lot more than just that. Do you want to explain what the Take Root program is, how it works, and the 2-night format? And
yeah, sure. So Iowa Farm Bureau started Take Root in 2013. It was truly a grassroots program. It was brought to our attention by our members that farm succession planning was an area that they needed a little help in. They needed a little more information and motivation to get started. So we went around the state, we did some focus groups, and we developed the content for what Take Root is now. So we do after this summer, we'll have hit 98 of our 99 counties in Iowa. So we're pretty proud of that. They've either hosted the location or they've hosted the workshops or been invited to our workshops. So they're a 2-night workshop. The first night, we talk about operating your farm, your business within the family. And then we also talk about some estate planning tactics as well. And then the second night of the workshop, we talk about building your advisory panel as you go through the succession planning process. And then we have that panel, we bring in an attorney, a lender, a CPA, and then we have Dave Baker from the Beginning Farmer Center. He does a lot of similar to what Andy does, meeting with the families and those type of things. So we bring in that panel and we open it up to our audience to be able to ask a lot of questions. We really tell them, hey, you're getting your questions answered without getting that bill at the end of the night. So make sure you answer questions. So
what are the most common questions you hear all the time? What would you say would be?
Sure. We get a lot of questions on just kind of getting the conversation started. How do we encourage that senior, that owner generation to ask those questions? We get questions about how to protect the farm in the event of a divorce or something like that. And we get also how to protect the nursing home, the state, from getting the land. So we talk about that as well. Those are there's a lot of the whole night. It's a 3-hour session, and we don't run short of questions at all. So there's always tons of questions for our advisory panel.
You could do 3 hours just on those 3 questions, I tell you.
Yeah.
So you do a Young Farmers Conference as well.
Yep, I help in the planning process of the Young Farmer Conference. Iowa Farm Bureau does a great job with our Young Farmer Conference. We get 500 young farmers throughout our state to come to our capital, Des Moines, and we do a great conference. We do a lot of breakouts. It's a really, really good opportunity for our young farmers.
And what are the most popular topics that are covered at that conference?
We do a lot of livestock breakout sessions because we know that's how our young farmers get started, is through increasing their livestock operations. We do some conservation, financial planning, marketing. There's a lot of different, we do some family aspects. This past year we had one a city girl who had married a farmer. And she talked about going to the farm life. So there's a lot of different breakout sessions that we do. We try to cover the whole gamut.
And I think the coolest thing is that you actually provide babysitting, which is, when you put on a conference, it might seem silly, but it's necessary for that demographic. You yourself, you do a lot of financial planning work with a one-on-one with the producers.
I get, sure, sorry.
Yeah, go right nuts. Yeah.
I get the opportunity to work with young farmers as they move into those. They want to purchase some land, go from the cash renting and move forward to purchasing some land. So I work with them on what that balance sheet's going to look like and what that cash flow is going to look like.
And how has the mood changed in the last 5 years? What are lenders actually wanting more information about these days? And how has the way you approach getting bank financing changed really in 5 years?
I would say in the last 5 years, it's a lot more cash flow heavy. Hey, how are you going to pay for this? How's this going to work? What are our break-even prices? Asking those tough questions of, let's really evaluate this and make sure that we can make it pay, not just buying land to buy land.
What percentage of let's say the 500 young farmers that go to the Young Farmer Conference, what percentage would you guess would actually know their break-even price just like right now?
I would say 5-10% maybe. Yeah. I mean, they would have to know it off the top of their head. That's very few. So
yeah, I would say, and you mentioned you work a lot with ISU Ag Decision Maker.
Yes.
Do you know the website address of that? Because I think that's a tool that every farmer should really understand. And I mean, I use it for my clients in Canada even. Where can young farmers go to get that ISU Ag Decision Maker? And could you explain what that program does and how you use it for young farmers?
Sure. I use it a lot for young farmers just to consider their enterprise budgets. It has so many different enterprises. If you just want to background cattle, there is a spreadsheet for that that'll tell you your break-even price. There's just any enterprise you could possibly think of, feeder pigs. If you just Google Ag Decision Maker Iowa State, it'll be one of the first ones to come up. I don't know the website right off the top of my head, but it is a really great resource, especially if you're struggling where to even start. It has a list of all the costs to consider. And one thing that it does do that a lot of our farmers don't do is it includes your labor costs.
Yeah. And I think it's important at the beginning of the year, even at this time of year, it's important for farmers to spend like half a day sitting down and crunching the numbers. Like to really understand your cost production it seems silly that we have to discuss this, but the majority of farm families couldn't tell you off the top of their head where they're at. And when corn prices have dropped from $7, now we're looking around $3.50 is where things could be at. The question is, are you going to be able to produce it for that cost? Mm-hmm. Would you agree with me on that, or how critical is that issue and it's really not being addressed properly, in my opinion? What do you think?
I think it's very critical. It also helps as far as marketing, what you got to do for your marketing efforts. I think that knowing that price will dictate the rest of your year. It makes a lot of decisions for you as you go through the farming process as far as marketing and even considering your living costs. You're going to know where you're at, if you can take that vacation this year or not, those type of things, if our farmers take vacation.
Yeah. You and I are talking just before the show. Living owner's draw from the family farm, it's really changed in the last 10 years. And there's a lot of farmers still farming, still living at a living standard that they think it's $7 corn. And it's so tough to say what is the right level to live at. But I think your family has to have a candid discussion about that. And that's not just for the younger generations, for the older generation as well. What is the cost? What's the cost of living on a family farm. I mean, for each farm it's going to vary, but you know, I had a family just a couple of weeks ago. They were complaining that they were only getting paid $5,000 for a family of 5. They had 3 kids under 5 years of age, and they were just talking about how hard done by they were.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, at the same day, I seen that one of our neighbors was drawing $800, and he had 2 kids under 5 years of age, and you know, same concession line. It's crazy the variance, but I mean, you know, owner's draw is really. I've seen families draw $400,000. It just gets out of control sometimes.
And it's important. It's important to be honest with yourself as you go through. I worked with a young farmer. He was a bachelor, 20, and he swore that he could live off $400 a month. He lived in his grandma's house, didn't have to pay any rent. And I said, all right, let's sit down and look at your bank statement. He spent $150 the first week of the month at a convenience store.
Yeah.
There was no way he was living off $400 a month.
Yeah. Beer and groceries is a lot of guys think, oh, I just spend money on beer and groceries. Well, you spend a lot more than that, you think, when you actually calculate it.
Yes.
So the question is, I mean, cutting your costs is one thing, but marketing. What are some simple tools? I mean, you can go to 8-week, or you can go to take an 8-week course online as to how to market commodities. But what's the most simple, systematic process that you've seen out there that actually works for producers in a practical way?
Well, I think it's going to be different for every operation. I think it's just important to have a game plan up front. And a part of that game plan is knowing that break-even price and reducing your risk. Reduce that risk by using some of your marketing tactics. I am not agreeing. I refuse to give any marketing advice. I always said, sell it at the highest price you can. That was my marketing advice. My
basic marketing advice is that you get all your family members to agree to your target prices. Mm-hmm. You know, would you not say that there's a lot of families where, like, I remember, this is 96. I was digging a ditch for my boss who at the time, and he went out and sold the corn. He just told his son, I sold it all this morning. And the next day there was a market jump, and his son said we could have bought the elevator leg today. I was digging the ditch for. Had my dad stayed an extra day, and he was critical of his dad for the rest of the summer because of that. Mm-hmm. It's important, I think, that the whole family is on the same page. You know, and how do you see families successfully do that? When you're at the Young Farmers Conference, what do you see, or when you're working one-on-one with producers that are young farmers, what do you suggest they do as far as setting that target price, or how do you get the family all on the same page about marketing?
You know, we tell a lot of our young farmers, if you really educate yourself on marketing and get your toolbox full as far as knowing what there is to know about how to market your grain, use that, help that middle generation or that senior generation to educate them, because that's not necessarily something that any farmer is an expert at. So that's your opportunity to really help and contribute to that farm operation. So it's just a matter of getting your ducks in a row and knowing what's a put from a call and those type of things, and really understanding how it is and what you can do to improve, lower your risk, essentially. Yeah.
And okay, so let's go on to a completely different conversation here. When you're at this this event where you're with the Take Root program, you have a really killer question about that the senior generation should be asking themselves. What is that question you guys ask? Get every producer to ask themselves.
So we encourage at our meetings, we encourage all generations to come. So there's been a few times where we have all 3 generations involved in the operation. A lot of times it's just the senior and the middle generation mainly because maybe that junior generation isn't old enough to farm. So we get them down there, we set them down, and we ask them, what is it that you need from the other generations as you go through this process? And it makes them really think, what is it that I want from my father, my parents in this plan, or what is it that I want from my son? It really makes you think about across the board what it is you need from each generation as you go through that process. And I would say, by and large, from all generations, the number one thing that everybody says is communication.
Yeah, and that's a good word to use, but I think it's such a silly word until the fit hits the shan. Like, what are how many farms you say that the families they suggest to have family meetings, but then how many families are you actually seeing actually having family meetings?
Sure. In a room of about 150 people, I asked them, I said, how many people actually have family meetings at this point? And each time I don't think I've seen more than 4 hands raised.
Yeah. And 10 years ago when I started doing what I do, I thought there was going to be such a need for this, right? Because of that, nobody raised their hands. But I mean, it's such a silly word until, I started for the first couple of years. And, now I just sit down with families, unfortunately, after the fit hit the shan. And then we start having weekly, like, for instance, just started meeting with a family in Virginia. And we're going to meet with them for half an hour every week. And that's the time and place we force them to talk about one way to improve how they work together and one way to just improve production. But for that family, they almost lost the farm until they got there. And I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the culture of farming. We can do that on our own. And I just find that having an outsider over Skype just forces you to actually do the meeting. I mean, you could do it on your own, but the reality is, as a family, you're not going to do it unless you have it's scheduled in and you have a third party. It could be a toad sitting on the end of a log, just making sure you get it done, but it doesn't happen. So unfortunately, what's a good example you've seen of a farm family that did the succession planning right?
Sure. So I just, in a conversation at one of our meetings, I spoke to a guy, I would say he was probably mid-30s. And he told me, he goes, my dad did it right. I'm very fortunate. So what he told me is he was in his 20s, and his dad just told him a location to be and a time to be, and said, we're going to have a meeting. Your siblings are going to be there. So just so you're aware. And they show up. They were meeting at an attorney's office, and the dad was not there, but the attorney spoke for him and said, okay, your dad wants to get this right. Your dad wants the farm succession. He wants you guys to be involved in this process. And he talked to them about, okay, this is worst case scenario. This is what could happen if we don't get this plan right. But what it did is it bought buy-in from all of his siblings. Everybody knew the plan from the beginning. Everybody got to contribute what they wanted to see in the future. And they revisit that now they're all siblings. I believe there's 2 active farming heirs right now. They operate very successfully together. Everybody knows what's going to happen. The non-farming heirs know what's going to happen, knows what's going to happen, and they revisit the plan every couple of years. So that is a very proactive approach that I don't necessarily hear that often. Yeah.
And I think that's an awesome story. And that's kind of what I want to finish it on. If everybody could actually, I think, take note of that and maybe apply it to their own operation. I think that's a really wise approach. This Young Farmer Conference, is it open to people from outside the state?
To my knowledge, we have never I've seen a few folks from Missouri there. So I don't believe we've ever turned away non-Iowans.
I think it would be really cool. I mean, for my clients in Canada, Ontario, I'm going to suggest they go to it because I think it sounds like a really cool conference. So
yes.
Congratulations for being. What time of year is it? What time of year is it for next year? Do you know? Or
it is? I think it's February. It's early February. I'm not sure the exact dates, but it's February 2018.
Whereabouts will it be posted on your website in the future?
We have a young farmer page on our website, so it'll be one of the biggest things that's on the main page once we start marketing it. So
I think it's really cool. And this your Taking Root program, are you guys doing it live stream next year? You ever thought about putting it live stream so farmers from outside the state can watch and really be kind of participate?
Every year we have requests because not all family members can be there, and they want all family members to be hearing the same information. But we have not done anything live or recorded anything yet. But we do keep getting asked that, so we may consider it in the future.
Well, I think that's awesome. So it's been Amanda Van Steenwyk, and your phone, your contact information. Where can people find out more about these programs and in your line of work? Is there a website address you have, or can people Google a certain section of Farm Bureau?
Yep. If you on our iowafarmbureau.com, we have a section for Take Root, but really if you just Google Take Root Iowa Farm Bureau, you're going to find it too. So
that's awesome. Well, Amanda, I really appreciate all you do and helping young farmers get into agriculture and just helping the community in general. It's fantastic. So I love your work, and keep on doing what you're doing. This has been the Business Culture of Agriculture. My name is Andy Junkin, and we host this show live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And you take care, and God bless.